Discover the incredible moment a black server revealed the hidden truth about a neglected bride. Angela wiped a bead of sweat from her brow as she maneuvered through the packed diner, the chatter and laughter of customers blending into a cacophony of comfort. It was a typical Friday night, the aroma of grease and coffee enveloping her like a familiar embrace. At 28, working 2 jobs just to scrape by and chase her dream of writing, each bustling evening felt like a tightrope walk between exhaustion and aspiration. She caught snippets of people's lives. The couple in the corner booth reminiscing about old times, the solitary man flipping through a worn novel, the laughter of friends gathered for fries and shakes. As she poured refills, she made mental notes for her next story. Suddenly, the bell above the diner door chimed, and an extravagant wedding party flooded in, a jolt of energy that shattered the usual rhythm. Glamorous gowns and well-tailored suits invaded her quiet world. Among the guests, a bride, Sarah, stole the spotlight, her designer gown shimmering under the diner's fluorescent lights. She radiated a perfect veneer, yet when Angela flashed a friendly smile, Sarah merely scoffed, dismissing her as if she were an unwanted fly buzzing around her bubble of perfect moments. The hurt settled in Angela's chest. Being overlooked was all too familiar, and each brush-off from those with so much privilege made her feel smaller. Yet, as the evening wore on, Angela's ears sharpened, the haze of noise shifting to clarity. She overheard fragmented conversations. Words like control and disappointment floated to her, stitched with an undercurrent that tugged at her heart. The laughter surrounding Sarah seemed almost hollow, a dissonance against the backdrop of her own dreams battling daily struggles. Angela's gut twisted with empathy, recognizing the deep sadness behind the bride's flawless facade. It stirred something inside her. A mix of anger and compassion ignited a fierce determination to help. As she approached Sarah to offer a drink, she stammered, "You look wonderful." Angela's smile felt shaky, the tension in her nerves crackling with concern. The bride's eyes darted, lost in the whirlwind of the celebration. But when she adjusted Sarah's gown, her fingers brushed against something familiar, an envelope hidden beneath the silk. Curiosity bubbled as she gently extracted it, the delicate paper crumpling in her grip. It was the raw truth that both of them desperately needed, words of confusion and fear penned with heartbreak, revealing the shadows that clung to the glimmer of her bridal gown. Before Angela could catch her breath, that familiar weight settled in her chest. She felt the burden of her own struggles rush in, the years of fighting to be heard and upheld. Should she speak up? Could she be the voice she longed for others to be for her?
"You don't have to go through with this," she finally said, her voice steady despite the fluttering in her stomach. But the moment felt suspended, an electric pause hanging between their lives, powerful and demanding. Before she could brace herself, the lights flickered and then went out, plunging the diner into darkness, the sudden silence imbuing the air with tension. Just as Angela's heart raced with uncertainty, the power returned, illuminating the room and revealing Sarah's changed expression, a confusion tangled with recognition. Angela could see the vulnerability peeking through the bride's strong facade. But then all hell broke loose. The din of the wedding party was interrupted as Sarah's fiancé stormed in, voice booming, demanding to know what was happening. The diner fell silent, every gaze fixed on the trio, the invisible battle brewing, leaving everyone teetering on the edge of an unresolved truth. Angela's thoughts spiraled. Would Sarah choose to break free, or would the heavy hand of conformity grip her tighter? The weight of unspoken fears and desires clung in the air like a thick fog, urging them toward an inevitable confrontation. The uproar from Sarah's fiancé jolted Angela back to reality, her instincts screaming for her to withdraw. Yet instead of retreating, she felt an unexpected surge of resolve washing over her, igniting a fierce belief in her own voice. She was no longer just a server. She was a catalyst for change in a moment suffocated by pretense. "Let's talk," Sarah said, her voice low yet steady, surprising everyone, including herself. The guests around them murmured, uncertainty filling the air as Angela watched the sharp edges of the bride's anxiety soften. Curiosity, relief, an intriguing blend of emotions grazed Sarah's features. Perhaps, beneath the surface, a part of her was desperate to break free. Angela could feel the tension in the room pulse like a throbbing heartbeat, her heart racing alongside it. She stepped closer, her hands clammy, but determination solidifying her stance. "This is your moment, Sarah. What do you want?" The words flowed from her with unexpected fluidity, as if she were unearthing a truth buried beneath layers of civility and expectation. "She doesn't know what she wants. How could she?" snapped Sarah's fiancé, his voice cutting through the charged atmosphere like a knife. Anger speared through Angela, igniting her already raw emotions. How dare he presume to control the breath of life that Sarah sought? Or maybe she just needs the space to figure it out. Angela's voice steadied, her gaze unwavering. A pin-drop silence followed, each word echoing with the weight of an unyielding truth. This wasn't merely about the bride's moment, it was a moment for herself, for Angela too, a reflection of her life's ongoing choices. Angela remembered her own struggles with self-expression, stifled by the expectations of family and society.
This was her opportunity, not just to provide moral support, but to live her truth alongside Sarah. "Let's give her a moment," Angela said, glancing at Sarah, who nodded, the flicker of gratitude igniting something deep within the woman. In that brief exchange, Angela realized the paradigm was shifting. Confrontation wasn't merely a negative aspect, it was a path toward clarity, toward empowerment. It was a lesson she had failed to recognize in her own life, stifled by fear of judgment from those who had nothing at stake. "Leave her alone!" Sarah's voice rang firm now, piercing the uncertainties. She pulled the envelope tighter to her chest, gripping her resolve as though readying herself for battle. "I'm going to talk about what I want. I deserve that." The thrill of watching someone embrace their strength broadened Angela's shoulders, as if she were carrying a torch lighting up the darkest corners of her aspirations. Sarah's voice echoed the sentiments that Angela had buried deep within herself. It made her question, was this moment about a bride's choice or about her own awakening? With each second, Angela felt herself unraveling from a cocoon, realization dawning over her like sunrise breaking through the veil of night. In the face of turmoil, she was forging ahead, understanding her role as a life shaper for herself. She wasn't just a spectator, she was part of the tapestry of transformation. As the dim din of uncertain chatter resumed, Angela realized the thread that connected them all, the shared fear of never being enough. Would she gather the courage to not only stand up for Sarah, but also confront her own inhibitions? The pressure of self-discovery tightened around her like the intricate lace of Sarah's gown. The moment had arrived for both of them, a reckoning wrapped in the heart of a diner full of onlookers, each silently reading their own narratives amid the chaos. Would either of them find the strength to break away from the chains of expectation? Standing amid the swirling doubts, she questioned herself, was it possible for her to reclaim her narrative while helping another? The thread of her future spun dangerously close to unraveling, yet all of this felt inexplicably right. As Sarah opened her mouth, poised to reveal her truth, Angela held her breath, sensing a shift on the horizon. The time had come to face the truth of the bride and of herself. Angela's breath caught in her throat as she met Sarah's eyes, a silent pact forming between them. This was the inky moment before ink touched paper. Months of unspoken fears and desires hung heavy in the air, pulling them into a shared gravitational pull that felt almost palpable. Sarah's lips parted, but the words remained locked away for a moment longer, suspended in uncertainty and anticipation. As tension coiled deeper, Angela's instincts shifted gears. She felt the urge not just to support, but to elevate this confrontation into a movement of personal liberation. Standing inches from the chaos, she leaned in slightly, equally a participant and an observer, yearning for her own strength and voice reflected in Sarah's next words. "It's my life," Sarah finally whispered, her voice vibrating with unprocessed emotion. "And I've spent so long living it for everyone else." The rawness of her declaration ignited something in Angela, a reminder of the years she had censored herself to fit molds forced upon her by family and society. This was not merely a wedding, it was a catharsis. The room remained oddly still as small gasps erupted from the onlookers, setting off a ripple of discomfort mingled with respect. Sarah's fiancé narrowed his eyes, but Angela could see a hint of faltering resolve in his posture. Maybe he did not expect unfiltered honesty to bubble to the surface on this of all days. As the reality of the situation set in, Angela sensed a swell of her own potential bubbling up. Confrontation had a way of unearthing truth, and here she was, tangled between two pivotal moments. Running a hand nervously through her hair, she fought back the urge to retract her own voice, which now felt louder than the bickering din of expectations surrounding them. "Sarah," she said gently, keeping her tone steady, "it's incredible to hear you say that, but it's also okay to not know what to do next." She realized that extending honesty often required as much courage as accepting it. The more she gave to Sarah, the more she chiseled away at her own suffocating restraints. "Angela's right," Sarah's fiancé interjected, uncertainty creeping into his voice as he retreated from their confrontation. "Maybe we should really listen to her." Surprise flickered in Sarah's eyes as she turned to Angela, awareness dawning that their narratives had intertwined beyond her wildest comprehension. This was the moment Angela had been desperately wishing for, an awakening that redefined her self-worth, an illumination previously veiled by timid resignation. She could feel the applause swelling in her mind. It was the validation she had always sought, but it was more than that. It was a realization that change doesn't originate from external validation, but from a wellspring of personal truth. Fingers trembling slightly, she sought another path to guide them both. "What if today is about writing our own stories?" she proposed, her voice gaining momentum against her initial apprehension. "What if we take back the narrative shared amongst so many and mold it into something authentic, something that represents who you are?" Angela's heart raced as her words echoed around the diner, palpably resonating with the onlookers, who began to shift in their seats, witnessing this unexpected metamorphosis. In that instant, Angela felt the boundaries of her own narrative widen, offering a passage not just for Sarah, but ultimately illuminating her own path ahead. They could emerge from this crucible forged not just by turmoil, but by collective revelation.
But just as Sarah seemed poised to embrace that possibility, a sudden clang of cutlery jolted through the air, pulling Angela's thoughts back. In an instant, the world around them re-solidified. She now faced the potential of losing that moment of connection, a fleeting opportunity where both she and Sarah could break free from their respective cages. Would Sarah follow this newfound truth to its conclusion, or would the weight of expectation pull her back? Angela's heart pounded, caught in the whirlwind of uncertainty that lay ahead. The reality of this struggle clung tangibly in the air, like a fragile breath suspended before its exhalation, waiting for one decisive push to free them both.
"Are you ready?" she murmured softly, the question hovering between them as the din of the diner receded, fading to an expectant hush. It was the moment of truth, and how it unfolded could alter everything. The moment hung delicately, an electric charge coursing through the air, making every heartbeat seem like an echo of uncertainty. Angela locked eyes with Sarah, the urgency of her own convictions intertwining with the potential of Sarah's unfolding truth. This was not merely Sarah's declaration. It became a mirror reflecting Angela's own silent struggles, an invitation to confront the long-hidden fragments of her life. As Angela continued to hold space for Sarah, she felt the weight of her own past pressing down, a haunting reminder of the echoes of her own subdued voice that had been silenced time and time again. The self-doubt that had haunted her for years began to surface, wrestling against the burgeoning sense of agency she felt coursing through her veins. This isn't just about Sarah, she thought fervently, the urgency rising within her. This is about finding my own voice too. Whatever happens next, Angela reminded herself, I can't retreat, I must lean in. The commitment she felt towards Sarah's liberation alighted a spark in her spirit, illuminating the corners of her own hesitations lurking in the shadows. She could feel an unsteady strength building, fueled by the knowledge that even in vulnerability there is power. "Sarah, listen to your heart," she urged. Her voice resonated not just with encouragement for Sarah, but resounded back onto herself, solidifying her resolve. "You're not alone in this. You have the power to carve out a future that reflects who you are." The statement felt like a revelation for both of them. It was as if Angela was also giving herself permission to do the same. As she spoke, she became acutely aware of the eyes around her, some filled with incredulity, others with muted support. Through the palpable tension, Angela allowed herself to observe not just Sarah, but the crowd, realizing that everyone here was grappling with their own narratives of conformity and expectation, longing for their moment.
"I don't want to live in someone else's story anymore," Sarah declared, the tremor of her voice a mix of fear and newfound determination. Angela's heart raced at the palpable shift in Sarah's tone. They were collectively standing on a precipice, where the stories they had been told about themselves could be rewritten. "Then let's rewrite them together." Angela felt the words tumble out as if she were giving voice to a stirring within, catalyzing something larger than just the moment at hand. The fierceness of her commitment to empower both herself and Sarah surged forth. The entire diner was still, captivated by the potential unfolding, lives on the verge of transformation. Yet she was still struck by a profound realization. While the winds of change were beginning to swirl around them, the hardest part lay ahead. Overcoming the shackles of doubt was just the beginning. Would Sarah have the courage to sever the chains binding her to old expectations? Angela felt her own resolve quivering under the weight of that question. In the folds of that uncertainty, her heart leaped at an unforeseen vision. What if breaking free wasn't just about Sarah? What if Angela could finally claim her own story as fiercely as her friend had just begun to reclaim hers? In that precious moment of revelation, Angela's thoughts spiraled with urgency. What awaited them beyond the diner doors? Suddenly, a sense of determination washed over her. She had to be the architect not only of Sarah's freedom, but of her own. "Whatever happens next," she thought, steeling herself, "I will not shy away again. I will not run." The question remained, however, how? And would Sarah embrace this new direction? "Are you ready to face it all?" she whispered to Sarah, knowing the weight of such an inquiry. The tension in the air thickened again, carrying with it the turbulent remnants of unvoiced fears, stories begging to be unleashed. The path ahead shimmered with uncertainty and rebellion, calling not just for a choice, but a leap. But would they be able to take that leap together?
What awaited them on the precipice of liberation? The weight of Angela's words lingered in the air, stronger than the scent of fried food and coffee that permeated the diner. Sarah's hesitant nod felt like the first step into an uncharted territory. Yet Angela sensed the pull of her own insecurities trying to tether her to the safe confines of silence. "I'm not here to save you," she thought, a mental reminder to ground herself. No, this was about partnership, a mutual recognition of the struggles they both faced. Yet, as the realization dawned that she might never feel fully ready, Angela felt a tide of urgency washing over her. If she was going to be there for Sarah, she needed to free herself from her own restraints as well. "Let's go outside," Angela suggested, the world beyond the diner beckoning like an unexplored realm. It was a simple directive, but it felt monumentally significant.
They stepped into the open air, breathing deeply as if the fresh atmosphere could clear their minds of doubt. Angela took a moment, standing under the early evening glow, to absorb the enormity of this crossroads. Standing side by side, Angela felt the warmth of Sarah's arm brush against her own. There was a silent understanding between them, the kind that bound them through their separate battles against quiet despair. "Are you really ready?" Angela asked again, her voice firmer now. The question wasn't just for Sarah, it was a challenge to herself, a call to embrace the unknown. "What's really holding you back?" Sarah inquired, her voice steadier than before. Angela sensed a shift. The initial blanket of trepidation was now replaced by a blanket of solidarity. Angela took a breath, the cool air filling her lungs with courage. "I want to be true to myself," she began, her voice shaking slightly, but the conviction growing. "But I've always felt trapped in this," she gestured around, "this life that others made for me. I've let fear of convention dictate the choices I make." It was a revelation, raw and exposed, yet freeing as well. "Fear is a potent prison, isn't it?" Sarah reflected, and for a moment they shared a silence heavy with the collective weight of their realizations. Angela considered Sarah's journey, how the young woman had decided to confront her own chains, her own constricting narrative of expectation. Inspiration surged through Angela, igniting the spark. If Sarah could find her voice, why couldn't she? "I need to ask for what I want," Angela concluded. "I've been so afraid of judgment, of being too much. But what if that's what's holding me back?" The real question loomed in her mind, a challenge that demanded an answer. Sarah looked straight at her, eyes sparkling with determination. "Then let's shake things up. No more living in the shadows." The strength radiating from Sarah ignited a fire within Angela, leaving her breathless and excited. Was it possible for her to step into the light alongside Sarah, to stand unashamedly in her truth? As they turned back toward the diner's entrance, a flicker of resolve ignited in her core. Angela pictured herself rewriting her narrative, shredding the heavy script that had bound her for so long. Stepping into the feedback of the diner and the uncertain faces within seemed less daunting now. But even resolving to change was just the beginning, like an overwhelming tide crashing on the shore. Where would it take her? And what would she need to confront as she moved forward? The sheer depth of questions weighed heavily, yet it felt exhilarating. "Ready or not, here we go," she thought, embracing the mix of anxiety and resolve surging through her. Whatever awaited them was not merely beyond the doors. It was pulsating within her, echoing back the notion that liberation was never truly linear. "Angela," Sarah said, interrupting her thoughts, "are you ready to face the consequences of truth?" The looming prospect of the decisions ahead filled Angela with both dread and determination. Would they both find the strength to walk fearlessly into their truths? Time would soon tell. The diner seemed to pulsate around them as they stepped back inside, the ambient chatter mixing with the clang of dishes. Angela felt a shift in her own demeanor, as if the brief interlude outside had been a ritualistic shedding of her former self. Challenges lay along the well-trodden paths of her mind, but they appeared less insurmountable now.
The choice to confront her reality, however terrifying, felt inevitable. "Did you mean it?" she asked, suddenly turning to Sarah as they returned to their booth. "About shaking things up?" Sarah met her gaze with unwavering intensity. "Absolutely. It's time for both of us to stop hiding." Angela could feel the weight of the words sink in. They were more than just a promise. They were a call to arms. Angela's heart raced as possibilities began to swirl in her mind. What did shaking things up truly mean? Beyond mere words, it required tangible actions. She recalled the moments in her career where she had backed down or succumbed to indecision, erasing her own desires for the approval of others. That day had to mark the end of complacency. "Let's set some goals," Angela suggested, her voice gaining strength. "What do we want to accomplish in the next month? What steps can we take right now to begin shifting our trajectories?" The audacity of her own question surprised her. A sense of authority bloomed. Sarah nodded, tipping her head forward in thought, and Angela waited, absorbing the intensity of focus radiating from her friend. "I want to pursue my art more seriously," Sarah began, her words brisk and clear. "I've been too scared to show it. I always tell myself it's not good enough." Angela recognized the familiar trepidation echoed in Sarah's statement. "And what if we found ways to break that barrier, to showcase what we create?" she urged. It felt like throwing a pebble into the pool of doubt, rippling outward, creating waves of possibility. "Maybe we could organize a gallery night where we each present our work," Sarah suggested, her enthusiasm sparking like a flash of lightning. "A forum that's ours, where we control the narrative." "I love that," Angela replied, her excitement boiling over. The imagery of a vibrant, affirming space where they could freely express themselves urged the pulse of uncertainty to subside. Yet as her spirit soared, self-doubt crept back in. The thought of facing judgment, of risking vulnerability, sent a chill through her heat. But what if nobody shows up? What if it's a disaster? Her voice faltered at the edges, the specter of failure looming like a storm cloud. "That's the risk, Angela," Sarah pressed gently, a hand resting on hers as if anchoring her. "But think about the alternative, continuing down the same path. Wouldn't that be a greater regret?"
Angela's heart raced again. The struggle between apprehension and determination played out in her mind like an urgent chess match. How could she let the fear of others dictate her choices? The complexities of potential embarrassment felt insignificant compared to the freedom of pursuing authenticity. As they spoke, a vision started to crystallize in Angela's mind, an intimate gallery showcasing a blend of their art and stories interwoven with their truths. Each brushstroke, each word, a testament to resilience. She could feel an essential piece of herself shifting and coming alive, even as the doubts clanged like dissonant bells. "Okay," Angela breathed, her voice steadier now. "Let's make a plan. We can do this. We'll set a date, find a venue." The momentum of their new mission felt contagious, pushing through layers of hesitation. But in the midst of their excitement, a nagging question remained unaddressed, casting a shadow over her aspirations. What if this new venture exposed her vulnerabilities in ways she couldn't handle? Was she truly prepared for the fallout of unveiling her true self? As they enumerated their plans, Angela hung on to that shadow, feeling its weight settle in her chest. The thrill of change was exhilarating, yet it came with an undercurrent of uncertainty, whispering truths she had buried for too long. She realized that stepping into the light meant recognizing not just their potential, but also the anxiety that lurked within. "Angela, are you sure?" Sarah asked, her sincerity cutting through the noise of her thoughts. It was a simple question, but it demanded an intricate answer, one that delved deep into the essence of who Angela was willing to become. With a deep breath, she faced the reality of her self-imposed limitations. The time had come to confront not just the excitement of potential success, but the visibility of her vulnerabilities as well. Would she navigate the path ahead with courage, armed with ambition and an understanding of her shadowed truths?
The decision felt monumental, a hinge upon which her new chapter would swing. With an urgency that filled the space between them, Angela whispered, "Let's find out." As the clamor of the diner swirled around them, Angela felt a deep-rooted anxiety clench her stomach. Shaking things up seemed far more intimidating in this raw moment than it had outside. It meant peeling back layers she had carefully constructed, defenses she believed were essential to her survival. She needed to focus, to transfer her fear into something productive. "Okay," she said, pulling her thoughts back together. "We need to figure out the logistics. What do we need to make this gallery night a reality?" Sarah immediately grabbed a napkin, flipping it over and scribbling down notes with rapid enthusiasm. "Let's brainstorm locations. An abandoned warehouse, an artsy coffee shop, maybe the community center." Each suggestion illuminated the potential of their plans, but Angela's mind flickered back to the nagging insecurity. What if they put in the effort and the result was still mediocre? Was that failure, or merely part of the creative journey? "Let's focus on what we can control first," Angela interjected, attempting to temper her spiraling thoughts with pragmatism. "What about our art? How are we going to choose what to showcase? And maybe we can use this to reflect our journey. Each piece should represent our growth." Sarah paused, considering. "I'd love to display some of my earlier pieces alongside newer ones. It would show how far I've come." Angela hesitated, feeling the tension rising again. Did she even have pieces that reflect her journey? She hadn't created anything in over a year that she felt resonated with her true self. "Right," Angela said, her voice mindful. "But what about me? I haven't really explored where I am right now. I don't know if what I have is enough." "You have to stop underestimating yourself. What you create is inherently valuable because it's from you," Sarah encouraged. "Perhaps at the gallery we can relate stories behind each piece. That personal touch makes it more meaningful." Angela considered this. The idea of storytelling ignited something within her, a palpable connection between vulnerability and strength. But it also intensified her fear. Sharing those stories meant revealing parts of herself previously shielded by silence. As she reflected, a wave of determination washed over her. Hadn't she recently vowed to face her vulnerabilities? This was the very avenue she sought, yet fear still lingered, like a ghost, haunting each crevice of her mind. "Okay, I'll try to bring something that means something," Angela said cautiously. The choice to engage with her own struggles felt daunting yet liberating. Sarah returned to her enthusiastic planning. "Let's aim to secure the venue within the week, and we can create social media buzz to encourage attendance." Angela nodded, but felt an unexpected weight settle on her chest. Immediately, her mind played through the potential criticisms, the doubts of others, her own self-judgment. How would she articulate herself to strangers? "Isn't this terrifying?" Angela admitted, her voice lowering, losing the force behind her earlier enthusiasm. "Of course it is," Sarah replied, her brow gently furrowed as she leaned closer. "But that's the point. You have to own that fear. It's part of what makes you authentic." Angela's heart raced with conflicting emotions. Fear pressed against the undeniable urge to emerge from the shadows. The conversation flickered between excitement and trepidation, a delicate dance that felt increasingly urgent. "Maybe we can do a test run before the actual date," Angela suggested, thinking aloud. "Invite some friends first, get their feedback." "Brilliant idea," Sarah beamed. She began jotting down the plan. "We can fine-tune everything after some practice. You can rehearse sharing your story. It'll be great." As they discussed arrangements, Angela's mind began to settle into a steady rhythm of purpose, an exhilarating rush tinged with resolve. The journey they were embarking on promised immense growth, yet Angela was still acutely aware of the anxiety creeping in. Her thoughts transformed, calculating how much of herself she was willing to lay bare. Would she get to the point where she could articulate her deepest fears and dreams without flinching? The answer lingered at the edge of her consciousness, an uncertain sonic vibration waiting to be defined. In the frail safety of their booth, Angela looked deeply into Sarah's eyes and wondered, would revealing her story serve to liberate her or expose her to greater judgment? This lingering uncertainty coaxed a line of tension, signaling a shift in their ambitious trajectory. Angela knew they had embarked on a transformative journey, but at the center was an inevitable confrontation with her true self. The moment she feared the most still loomed ominously ahead. As they fortified their plans, Angela felt the stakes rising, her mind both filled with hope and terror. The next chapter unfolded within her, ready to write itself, but the shadow of doubt clung tightly. How was she to conquer it when every fiber of her being insisted on hiding? With that thought swirling, Angela finally voiced it. What if the reality is so much more daunting than we expect? Sarah looked at her, the sparkle of determination still alive. Then we face it together. Angela paced the length of her small living room, wringing her hands together as she considered the implications of the gallery night. The very thought of showcasing her art turned her apprehension into a living beast, gnawing at her courage. Despite her protests, Sarah's words echoed in her mind. You have to stop underestimating yourself. What if Sarah was right? With every step, a flicker of determination ignited within her. Angela believed that confronting her artistic insecurity would mean embracing her true self, the messy, complicated pieces of who she was. Settling at her dining table, she pulled out the few sketches she had completed in the past year, each one a glimpse into her tumultuous thoughts. They felt insufficient, lacking the punch Sarah's work exuded. Yet, as she leafed through them, something shifted. This was documentation of her journey. The sketches represented not just her artistic ability, but the emotional landscape she'd navigated. No longer were they mere drawings. Rather, they became snapshots of growth wrapped in vulnerability. Angela took a deep breath. Could she transform these pieces into the story she was so afraid to tell? Each stroke could reflect the highs and lows she had endured, showcasing her evolution rather than perfection. The thought of sharing her growth rather than just her art began to settle in. Suddenly, she envisioned the test run Sarah suggested. Inviting friends as an audience felt intimidating, but something about receiving constructive feedback sparked an unexpected thrill. Analyzing their reactions could provide necessary insights and perhaps even banish her overwhelming fear. She jotted down the idea in her notebook, invigorated at the prospect of exploring this unknown territory. Later that evening, Angela set aside her sketches and opened her laptop. She knew she still needed to find a location, but the nervous energy flowing through her sharpened her focus. Deep down, she recognized that none of this had to be perfect, it just needed to be genuine. While considering venues, her thoughts drifted back to places she had frequented, ones with artistic flair that would create a nurturing environment for her work. What if they used that quirky little cafe downtown? It had a warm atmosphere and an appreciation for local artists. She could envision framed sketches lining the walls, adorned with her story that could intertwine with each artwork. Those thoughts mingled with self-doubt. Would potential patrons even care about what she had to say? As her mind churned with conflicting thoughts, a voice inside nudged her. What if they do care? What if you connect with someone through your journey? She considered the power of authenticity and how sharing her truth might foster connection, even at a greater risk of judgment. The process of planning, though shaky, became entwined with self-discovery. Each decision required introspection, forcing her to confront her fears while determining what truly mattered. Was sharing the rawness of her experience worth it? Rubbing her temples, Angela felt that familiar tension rise. What if this turned into a disaster, showcasing her flaws instead of her strength? But could it be the catalyst she needed? As the thought settled, the tension transformed into determination. Angela knew she wouldn't emerge from this unscathed. Facing vulnerability meant embracing the possibility of failure. Still, an undeniable feeling surged within her. This fear could be converted into motivation rather than a deterrent. The crux lay in how willing she was to embrace this uncomfortable process. Before heading off to bed, she sent Sarah a text about the cafe idea, her heart racing with uncertainty. She hit send, pondering the reaction that awaited her. Would Sarah believe in her vision? Would it galvanize their planning efforts? As the minutes ticked by, the silence crushed her anticipation. Did she fall into the trap of overthinking again? The doubt crept closer, a specter lurking behind every corner of her mind. At that moment, her phone buzzed with Sarah's enthusiastic response, eagerly supportive. Relief washed over her, but with it came a new wave of anxiety. Was she edging closer to opening a door that would irrevocably change her? As she fell asleep, those questions twisted and turned within her, a restless show of emotions. "Next week can't come soon enough," she whispered into her pillow, the weight of the upcoming moments solidifying the truth she had nearly forgotten. Growth required facing the fire, and she was unsteady but willing to step closer. Yet the specter of doubt still loomed, taunting her realization that the next chapter of her journey could very well lead toward greater revelations or trembling introspection. Would she truly emerge stronger, or would the fire consume her instead? The morning light filtered through Angela's kitchen window, illuminating the table dotted with her sketches and an array of notes. The familiar uneasiness bubbled in her stomach as she contemplated the upcoming test run. Could she really unveil her inner world to an audience? Would they see value in what she deemed imperfect? She forced herself to stir her coffee, trying to channel her anxiety into energy. As she sipped, her gaze fell upon her sketches. They now felt like tangible reminders of her processing pain and joy, an evolution etched in graphite and charcoal. She imagined what her friends would say, not just about the art, but about her story behind each piece. The thought sent a thrill tingling through her fingers. There was power in sharing her truth, though the narratives threaded with hesitation and rawness. A surge of determination rewrote the anxious rhythm of her heart. If she could hold a gathering at that cafe, the opportunity could be more than a mere showcase. It could be an intimate revelation explored through conversation and connection. What would it feel like to lay bare her struggles in front of her peers and receive validation rather than judgment? With renewed resolve, Angela began drafting a list of friends she would invite. Names swirled in her mind, each representing a unique connection to her artistic journey. Would they offer constructive criticism, or was she setting herself up for discomfort? She hesitated, allowing doubts to creep in, wrestling with the potential for their feedback to crumble her composure. Still, she recognized that stepping outside this fear was almost a rite of passage. She envisioned herself standing before them, a heartbeat away from bearing her vulnerabilities. Would her voice quiver while she spoke? Would this act transport her from a shadowy world of isolation into the embrace of community? With each additional name she scratched onto her list, a sense of weightless liberation washed over her. This was not merely a showcase, but a chance to redefine her relationship with her own art. Later, with her laptop open and the faint sounds of the cafe wafting in through her window, Angela began to craft an event flyer. Each word she typed felt like an offering, a chance to frame the narrative of her growth. "Join me for an exploration of self through art." The phrase sparked excitement, a connection that seemed to bridge her world to others around her. She felt her blend of nerves and anticipation morph into excitement. However, as she prepared to finalize the flyer, a sense of foreboding pulled at her thoughts. What if nobody came? What if the people she invited didn't connect to her work as she hoped? Angela couldn't shake that inner voice whispering her insecurities back into existence. "You're just creating a spectacle for them to judge," it hissed, entwining her with doubt.
Frustrated, she slammed her laptop shut and stood up, pacing her small living room, the echoes of the familiar tension rising. Each step felt heavy, thoughts rattling against the confines of her mind. What was at stake? Angela reminded herself that this was about authenticity, not outcomes. How liberating would it be to speak her truth, even if the reactions were varied? This gathering could be a stage reflecting not only her art, but the very act of her becoming. With each moment she stood at the precipice of confrontation with her fears, a new resolve formed. She would frame the event as an exploration, an invitation to experience her journey rather than just view her art. The thought ignited an ember of hope, transforming the narrative from one of vulnerability to one of empowerment. As dusk settled outside, Angela returned to her laptop and resumed drafting the event flyer, her hands steady. She understood that she could stumble and even fail, but the very act of stepping forward marked a significant change within her. Every sketch she displayed would unfold as a testament to growth, a dialogue, not a monologue. In the quiet of her space, a new wave of conviction took hold. This could be the catalyst, she thought, her heart racing at the prospect of unearthing her hidden capabilities. Just as she was about to finalize the flyer, the truth struck her like lightning. She was not merely an artist, she was also a curator of her own journey. Flashes of inspiration surged through her as she considered the more profound implications of sharing not only her art, but the processes that shaped her existence. As she completed the details for the gathering, her phone vibrated with a text from Sarah. "Can't wait to see everything come together. Do you have a theme in mind?" A twinkle of excitement flashed in Angela's mind, along with a sudden apprehension. Could she embrace the challenge of formulating a theme that encapsulated her journey accurately, consolidating the essence of her art and life into one statement? And would she seize this opportunity to fully reveal the most personal aspects of herself? The moment filled her with potential and trepidation as she pondered the possibilities ahead. This was her opportunity not only to showcase her art, but also to confront and embrace the depth of her narrative. It was time to step into her truth, but it would require even more than vulnerability. It would necessitate a collision between the artist and the person behind the canvas. "Who will I be when I share all of this?" Angela whispered to herself, ready to unravel this intricate puzzle as she put pen to paper once more. The stage was set, but the question trembled in the air. Would she emerge liberated or unmasked by the truths she'd long hidden away? Angela stood on the edge of the stage, heart pounding, thoughts racing. The cafe buzzed with the chatter of friends, each one gathered to witness not just a collection of her art, but the culmination of her journey towards self-acceptance and expression. This was her moment, the unveiling of everything she had fought to reclaim in herself, a testament to the growth she had chiseled through her struggles. As she inhaled deeply, Angela felt the warmth of support envelop her. Sarah's encouraging smile anchored her, providing the needed assurance to step out from the shadows of doubt. She glanced down at her sketches, each one infused with its own narrative, a reflection of the multifaceted evolution of her artistry and identity. This was not merely about showcasing her talent. It was a raw exposure of her heart and soul, the vibrant tangle of joy and sorrow that had shaped her. With a resolute breath, she stepped forward, eyes scanning the audience that had come to embrace her truth. "Thank you all for being here tonight," she began, her voice steady against the backdrop of murmured anticipation. "This gathering is more than an exhibition. It is a celebration of our stories, each of us carving out our own narrative, often buried beneath layers of conformity and expectation." The words flowed naturally, each sentence further entwining her with the listener's anticipation. "I spent years feeling lost, feeling like I wasn't enough.
I thought my art needed to be perfect, that I had to present a polished image to gain validation. But what if the real beauty lies in the imperfections? What if our narratives are stitched together through vulnerability? As she spoke, Angela noticed heads nodding in understanding, glimmers of recognition lighting the faces in the room. Her voice grew bolder, no longer tethered by her insecurities. These sketches represent not just my growth as an artist, but my journey toward authenticity. Each piece reflects a moment I experienced, a story I had to confront. The palpable tension morphed into a profound connection, the sentiment shared between the audience and Angela. She began to describe her earlier pieces, each one tied to moments of shame, doubt, or heartbreak. As she recounted the evolution inherent in her work, she could feel the audience leaning in, feeling the depth of shared humanity that radiated from her words. Emboldened, she pointed to her most recent work, an expansive piece filled with swirling colors and chaotic lines, representing her spiraling fears juxtaposed with vibrant hope. This isn't polished, she acknowledged, but it is authentic. It's me reclaiming my voice amidst the turbulence, a metaphor for embracing who we are, flawed yet fierce. As the emotions bubbled forth, a newfound strength ignited within Angela. She had transformed from simply an artist to a storyteller, awakening the very narrative she had previously shied away from. I want to challenge each of you tonight. What stories do you have lurking beneath the surface? What do you need to unearth to embrace your true self? As her questions hung in the air, the room shifted from passive spectators to engaged participants, reflecting on their intertwined struggles. Through sharing her journey, Angela not only felt a release of pent-up fear, but a solidification of her self-worth, her confidence crystallizing into an unmistakable presence. She had conquered the inner critic that had long dismissed her voice and silenced her spirit. With every heartfelt story exchanged, she built a framework for connection, understanding that forging a sense of community stemmed from individual transformation. After her narrative concluded, the cafe erupted into applause, a tangible warmth enveloping her as people connected with her journey, conversations sparking through the crowd, reflections echoing across the room. As she stepped off the stage, Sarah rushed to greet her, tears glistening in her eyes. "Angela, that was incredible!" Sarah exclaimed, embracing her tightly. "You transformed tonight. Your voice, your story. This is just the beginning for you." Angela smiled, feeling a profound sense of fulfillment radiate through her. She had embraced her truth and shared it with the world, igniting not only her path forward, but perhaps lighting a spark in others as well. The fears that once consumed her began to fade, replaced by a burgeoning confidence, a belief that she had carved out her narrative through resilience and vulnerability. In this moment, she recognized a fundamental truth. She had mastered the art of storytelling, not merely through her sketches, but through the act of living authentically and courageously. And as she captured the evening in her heart, it dawned on her that sharing her vulnerability had not been a risk, but rather a fortuitous victory. Angela had stepped into not just her artistic identity, but her truest self. This chapter concluded a significant phase of self-discovery for both Angela and Sarah, epitomizing what it meant to break free from repressed narratives. The path ahead was illuminated with promise. Theirs was a journey of boundless creativity buoyed by authenticity. As the night lingered on, she realized her story was not just about the art displayed on the walls. It was about the courage found within the process. Angela had now achieved what she had long sought, a deep and deserved fulfillment, recognizing firmly that personal transformation could emerge from the ashes of self-doubt. Each sketch, every courageous word, had united them all, carrying the force of shared triumph. Now, dear viewers, you need to subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories that inspire transformation. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm with your love. Comment below your reactions and theories about this powerful conclusion, and share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to experience the joy of personal overcoming. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait even one more second to share.